The jungle breathed, hot, wet, alive with sounds that could be wind or death. Lieutenant Jack Maddox moved through darkness like smoke, 28 years old and already ancient in ways that mattered. His boots made no sound on soft earth. Behind him, 7 men moved in perfect silence. Beside him, a shadow with 4 legs and amber eyes that missed nothing. Ghost! The German shepherd's head swiveled left, then right, nostrils working overtime in thick air. They had been on patrol 6 hours deep in the Mekong Delta, where maps meant nothing, and survival meant listening to the dog. Always listening to the dog. Maddox raised his fist. The column stopped. Ghost had frozen mid-step, one paw lifted, every muscle locked tight. The way he stood when death was close. The way he stood when Americans were about to die if somebody did not pay attention. Corporal Anderson crept forward, barely breathing. 32 years old from Texas. Told jokes that were not funny but made everyone laugh anyway, because laughing was better than thinking about tomorrow. LT, what has Ghost got? Maddox pointed at this trail ahead. Looked clear. Looked safe. Looked exactly like every other meter of jungle they had crossed that night. But Ghost knew better. Ghost always knew better. Tripwire, 3 meters ahead, left side of the trail. Anderson's eyes went wide. How can you tell? I cannot, but he can. They found it exactly where Ghost had alerted. Thin wire nearly invisible in darkness. Connected to enough explosive to turn all 8 of them into memory. Maddox ran his hand along Ghost's neck, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath fur. This dog had saved them 7 times in 3 months. 7 times they should have died, but did not, because Ghost smelled danger before danger smelled them. The radio crackled. Static, then a voice. Captain Richard Kaine at Firebase Delta 10 clicks north. Young officer, ambitious. The kind of man who saw war as resin builder instead of meat grinder. Falcon 6, this is Delta Actual. Sit rep. Maddox keyed the handset. Delta? Actual Falcon 6. We have contact indicators. Multiple tripwires. VC activity heavy in our sector. Copy that, Falcon 6. Intel suggests enemy preparing major assault on our position. Can you confirm? Maddox looked at Ghost. The dog's ears were forward, head tilted toward the north, toward Firebase Delta, every instinct screaming that something was wrong up there. Dogs did not lie. Dogs did not play politics. Dogs just knew. Delta Actual Ghost is indicating threat vector toward your position. Recommend we divert to reinforce Firebase defenses. Silence on the radio, too long. The kind of silence that meant someone was making a decision that would get people killed. Kaine's voice came back cold. Negative Falcon 6, intel from a dog? You are embarrassing the Corps Lieutenant. Continue your assignment to patrol route. Delta Actual out. The handset went dead. 7 men stared at Maddox. Doc Rivera spoke up. Medic, best friend, the only one who had been with Maddox since the beginning. LT Ghost has never been wrong. Not once. If he says the Firebase is in trouble, I know. Maddox looked at his team. Young faces getting older by the day. Martinez, Jackson, Foster, Brooks. Good men. Men who trusted him to bring them home. We take a vote. Democratic. Ghost says Firebase Delta is the target. Command says we are wrong. We can follow orders and stay on patrol, or we can trust the dog and maybe save American lives. No one hesitated. 8 hands went up, 9 counting Ghost's lifted paw. They moved fast, double time through the jungle. Ghost ranging ahead like a gray phantom in moonlight. Every minute counted, every second bought with sweat and fear and faith in a dog who could smell evil before evil arrived. They reached Firebase Delta at 0300, just in time to hear the first mortar rounds shriek overhead, just in time to see the jungle erupt with muzzle flashes as 200 VC fighters emerged from positions that should have been detected hours ago, just in time to watch Captain Kaine's face go white with terror as he realized the dog had been right all along. Maddox's team hit the defensive perimeter running. Ghost led them to weak points the enemy had not breached yet. The dog worked like he had been born for this, alerting to enemy positions, warning of incoming grenades, pulling wounded soldiers out of the kill zone by their webbing when medics could not reach them. The fight lasted 4 hours, felt like 4 years. When dawn broke pink and terrible over the Firebase, the body count told the story. 16 Americans dead, 43 wounded, but 200 VC bodies outside the wire. A massacre that should have been total victory for the enemy if one dog and 8 men had not shown up to even the odds. Kaine found Maddox at the aid station helping Doc patch up a kid from Iowa who had taken shrapnel to both legs. The captain's uniform was clean, not a speck of mud, not a trace of blood. He had spent the battle in the command bunker calling for artillery support that arrived too late to matter. "Lieutenant Maddox, good work last night." Maddox did not look up from the wounded soldier. "We came because Ghost told us to, not because you ordered it." "About that," Kaine's voice dropped low, "I do not appreciate being contradicted on an open channel. Makes me look weak in front of the men." Now Maddox did look up, locked eyes with Kaine. Saw something there that made his stomach turn. Not gratitude, not respect. Something darker, something that looked like calculation. "Sir, with respect, Ghost saved this firebase. Saved these men. Maybe saved your career. Least you could do is admit the dog was right and you were wrong." Kaine's smile could have frozen diesel fuel. "Dogs do not think, Lieutenant. They react. You got lucky. That is all." He walked away before Maddox could respond. Doc Rivera shook his head, hands still working on the Iowa kid's legs. "That man is going to be trouble, Jack. Mark my words. Officers like him, they do not forget when you make them look bad, even when you are right, especially when you are right." Doc was right. 3 weeks later, Kaine's revenge came wrapped in a routine patrol order. The briefing was simple. Too simple. Maddox's team would sweep a sector 10 clicks south, check for enemy supply routes. Return by 1700 hours. Standard operation, nothing special, except Ghost would not settle down before they left. The dog paced the hooch, whining low in his throat. That sound he made when danger was close, but he could not identify the source. "Easy, boy." Maddox ran his fingers through the thick fur. "Just another patrol, in and out. Nothing we have not done 100 times." But Ghost knew better. Ghost always knew better. They choppered out at first light. 8 men and 1 dog, Anderson, Martinez, Jackson, Foster, Brooks, Riley, Thompson, and Doc Rivera. The best team in the battalion. Brothers forged in fire and blood, and the kind of trust that only comes from surviving together. The landing zone was quiet. Too quiet. Maddox felt it the moment his boots hit the ground. Ghost felt it too. Hackles rising. Lips pulled back from teeth that could tear through flesh like paper. They moved into the tree line. Ghost ranging ahead, tail low, every sense screaming danger. But where? From what direction? The jungle revealed nothing. 3 clicks and Ghost stopped dead, planted all 4 paws and refused to move forward. Maddox had never seen him do that before. The dog was shaking, whole body trembling with the effort of fighting every instinct that said, "Run, run, now, run fast." LT Doc's voice was tight. "Something is wrong, really wrong." Maddox keyed his radio. "Delta Actual, this is Falcon 6. Ghost is indicating extreme danger. Request permission to abort patrol and return to base." Kaine's voice crackled back immediately. Too immediately, like he had been waiting for the call. "Negative Falcon 6, you have your orders. Continue mission. Delta Actual out. Sir, Ghost has never given a false alert. Not once in 9 months. If he says we are walking into something bad..." "I said continue mission, Lieutenant. That is an order, unless you want to add insubordination to your growing list of attitude problems." The radio went dead. Maddox looked at his team, saw the truth in their eyes. They trusted him, trusted Ghost. But orders were orders, and disobeying in combat could mean court-martial, could mean prison, could mean the end of everything. Martinez spoke up. Young, 22. Had a girl back home waiting for him with a ring already picked out. "LT, I am with you whatever you decide. But that dog has never steered us wrong. Maybe we should listen." Maddox made his choice. "We go forward, but we go careful. Ghost leads. Nobody moves until he clears the next 10 meters. Everybody stays tight, watches your sectors. Something feels wrong, you sound off immediately." "Clear?" "Clear." They moved like ghosts through the jungle. Ghost setting the pace, slow, methodical, checking every meter of ground like he was walking through a minefield. Because maybe he was, maybe they all were. It happened fast. 1 second, Ghost was sniffing a fallen log. The next second, the jungle exploded with gunfire from 3 sides. Ambush, perfect kill zone. Pre-positioned machine gun nest with interlocking fields of fire. Mortars already ranged in. RPGs at the ready. Professional work. The kind that required advanced intelligence. The kind that required someone to tell the enemy exactly where and when American soldiers would be walking through. Anderson went down first, took 3 rounds to the chest before he could even bring his rifle up. Martinez second, RPG exploding so close the shockwave lifted him off his feet. Jackson third, trying to drag Martinez to cover when the machine gun found him. Ghost launched himself at the nearest enemy position, 80 pounds of fury and loyalty and love, tearing into the gunner's arm, giving Maddox 3 seconds to return fire. 3 seconds that saved Maddox's life and cost Ghost his. The bullet hit Ghost in mid-leap, caught him in the chest, spun him sideways, dropped him hard onto the jungle floor. Maddox saw it happen in slow motion, saw his partner fall, saw the light start to fade from those amber eyes that had saved him so many times. The firefight lasted 15 minutes, felt like 15 hours. When it ended, 6 Americans were dead. Only Maddox and Doc Rivera survived, both wounded, both pinned down, both waiting for the enemy to finish the job. But the enemy withdrew, melted back into the jungle like they had never been there, because their mission was accomplished. 6 Americans dead, mission parameters satisfied. Intel had been good. Someone had told them exactly where to set up their ambush for maximum effect. Maddox crawled to Ghost, found the dog still breathing, barely, blood soaking into the earth beneath him. Those amber eyes found Maddox's face, locked on, held on with everything left. Ghost. No, 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 no. Stay with me, buddy. Please, please do not go. But Ghost was already gone. The eyes stayed open, but the light behind them faded to nothing. The last breath whispered out between bloody teeth. The greatest warrior Maddox had ever known died on foreign soil doing what he had always done, protecting his handler, saving American lives, being loyal until loyalty meant death. Doc Rivera put a hand on Maddox's shoulder, blood running down his own face from a head wound. Jack, we have got to move. Medevac is inbound. Charlie might come back. He knew. Maddox's voice was dead, empty. Ghost knew. He tried to tell us, tried to warn us, and I made him walk into it anyway. This was not your fault. This was Kaine. This was Kaine. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Doc did not argue. Could not argue. They both knew the truth. Standard patrol route that turned into perfect ambush. Intel that put them exactly where the enemy wanted them. Radio silence when they requested abort. It all added up to one conclusion. Someone had sent them to die. 53 years later, that same fire still burned. The black SUV appeared on a Tuesday morning in Montana, early, before the sun cleared the mountains. Colonel Jack Maddox heard it coming up the dirt road, grabbed his rifle, stepped onto the porch of his cabin, ready for whatever came next. 58 years old now, and Maddox looked 70, face carved by weather and whiskey and the weight of surviving when better men did not. The cabin walls were covered with photographs, his team in Vietnam, all smiling, all young, all dead except him and Doc. Ghost collar hung on the wall like a shrine, purple nylon worn soft with age, metal tags that still rattled when the wind came through the windows. General James Garrett stepped out of the vehicle, 65 now, 4 stars on his shoulders, 20 pounds heavier than the last time Maddox had seen him. But the same man, Maddox's old CO from the early days, before Kaine, before Ghost, before everything went to hell. Jack, General, you going to point that rifle at me all day or can we talk? Maddox lowered the weapon, did not invite Garrett inside, did not offer coffee, just stood on the porch and waited. Whatever this was, he did not want it, did not want anything that involved the military or the past or the ghost that never stopped haunting. Garrett pulled out a folder, thick, official, the kind of document that changed lives whether you wanted it to or not. I need a favor, Jack. Not interested. You have not heard what it is yet. Do not care. I am done with the military, done with wars, done with watching good soldiers die because politicians and officers play games with their lives. Garrett opened the folder, pulled out photographs. 4 dogs, German Shepherds mostly, 1 Belgian Malinois, all looking at the camera with eyes that knew too much. Eyes that had seen things dogs should not see. Eyes that held the same haunted quality Maddox saw every morning in his mirror. These dogs survived a Taliban ambush in Afghanistan, 2019. Their handlers did not. 5 men killed in action. The dogs made it out, barely, traumatized, PTSD, will not work with new handlers, will not eat consistently, will not engage. The current K9 program commander has recommended euthanasia for all four. Maddox felt something twist in his chest, looked at the photographs, saw ghosts in every set of eyes, saw warriors being thrown away because nobody understood them. Nobody spoke their language. Nobody remembered that loyalty runs both ways. Why are you telling me this? Because you are the only handler I know who might be able to reach them, the only one who understands what they have been through, the only one who has survived the same thing they survived. I have not handled a dog in 50 years. I know, but they do not need a handler, Jack. They need someone who understands survivor's guilt. Someone who knows what it is like to wake up every day wishing you had died with your brothers. Someone who has been exactly where they are. Maddox looked at the photographs again. One dog in particular caught his attention. German Shepherd, 4 years old. Amber eyes that could have been ghost eyes staring out from across 5 decades. What is his name? Phantom. Of course it was. Of course, the universe would send him a ghost dog with a ghost name to remind him that some things never died, no matter how much whiskey you poured on them. And the K9 commander who wants them dead? Sergeant David Cross. Good man. By the book. Modern training methods. Scientific approach. He has tried everything in the manual. Nothing has worked. He is out of options. There are always options. He is just not looking hard enough. Then come show him. 2 weeks. That is all I am asking. 2 weeks at Fort Bragg. Work with these dogs. If you cannot reach them, I will authorize the euthanasia myself. But if you can... If I can? Garrett's expression shifted, became harder, colder. The face of a general who knew secrets that would never see daylight. Then maybe you can help me figure out why 4 different K9 teams all got ambushed in 4 different countries over the last 5 years. Why all the handlers died but all the dogs survived. And why the man in charge of K9 operations at the Pentagon is the same man who sent your team into a kill zone in 1971. The name hit Maddox like a rifle butt to the gut. Kaine. Colonel Richard Kaine runs all K9 programs now, has for 10 years. And Jack, the pattern is identical. Bad intel, routine patrols that become ambushes, dead handlers, surviving dogs scheduled for euthanasia before anyone can investigate why the operations failed. Maddox's hands started shaking. Not from age, not from alcohol withdrawal, from rage that had been building for 53 years. He is still doing it, still killing soldiers, still covering his tracks. That is what I need you to help me prove. But first save the dogs, because they are the only witnesses, the only ones who were there when their handlers died. And if anyone asks the right questions, looks close enough, maybe those dogs can show us what really happened. Maddox stood silent for a long time, watched the sun climb over the mountains, painting everything gold. Thought about Ghost. Thought about 6 good men who died in a jungle because one officer cared more about his ego than their lives. Thought about 4 dogs waiting to die because nobody could understand them. He looked at Phantom's photograph one more time. Saw something in those amber eyes that called to something in his broken soul. 2 weeks, but I do it my way. No bureaucrats, no politicians, no modern training manuals. Just me and the bison, whatever is left of the old ways. Garrett extended his hand. Welcome back to the war, Colonel. They shook. The deal was made. Maddox went inside, packed a duffel bag with clothes he had not worn in years, took Ghost's collar off the wall, held it for a moment, feeling the weight of memory and duty and one last chance to get things right. I am sorry, boy, he whispered to the empty cabin. I am sorry I let you down. Sorry I let them all down. But maybe I can make it right. Maybe I can save these 4 like I could not save you. The collar went into the duffel. The photograph stayed on the wall. Maddox walked out of the cabin without looking back. Some doors you only close once. Some chapters end whether you are ready or not. Fort Bragg sprawled across the North Carolina landscape like a small city. Thousands of soldiers, hundreds of buildings, the machinery of war in peacetime. Always training, always ready, always hungry for the next generation of warriors to feed into its endless appetite. Garrett brought him straight to the K9 facility. Modern, clean, nothing like the muddy kennels Maddox remembered from Vietnam. This was science and protocol, and everything he had learned to hate about the military after Ghost died. Sergeant David Cross waited at the entrance. 40 years old, fit, sharp uniform, handshake firm but cold. Eyes that measured Maddox and found him wanting before a single word was spoken. Mr. Maddox, General Garrett speaks highly of your historical contributions. Colonel Maddox, I did not retire the rank. Cross stiffened, Of course, Colonel. But to be clear, I run a modern operation here. Science-based, protocol-driven. We use positive reinforcement behavioral psychology structured training matrices. You use excuses, I use results. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Garrett cleared his throat, trying to diffuse the tension before it exploded. But Maddox did not care about tension, did not care about hurt feelings or professional courtesy. 4 dogs were scheduled to die because this man could not think outside his manual. Show me the dogs. Cross led them through the facility. Everything was labeled. Everything was organized. Everything was exactly what you would expect from someone who had never had to make decisions while bullets flew past his head. They stopped at a window, one-way glass looking into a kennel. Inside, a German shepherd paced back and forth. Over and over, same pattern, same route, trapped in a loop of anxiety and trauma that nobody had been able to break. This is Target Animal 1. German Shepherd, 4 years old, survivor of Kandahar ambush, 2019. Original handler was. He has a name, Phantom, but he does not respond to it. Does not respond to anything. Aggressive with all handlers. Will not eat consistently. Demonstrates severe PTSD markers. Dr. Warner's assessment recommends. I do not care about assessments. Open the kennel. Sir, that is not protocol. Safety requires. I said open it. Cross looked at Garrett. The general nodded. Sometimes the only way forward is through, and sometimes through means breaking every rule in the book. The kennel door opened with an electronic buzz. Maddox stepped inside alone. Cross and Garrett watched through the glass, hands ready on radios, prepared for disaster. Phantom stopped pacing, turned. Hackles rose like a ridge of knives along his spine. Lips pulled back from teeth that could crush bone. Low growl building in his chest that said, "Come closer and find out what happens." Maddox did not approach, did not speak, did not make eye contact, just walked to the far corner of the kennel, turned his back to the dog, and sat down on the concrete floor. Cross's voice crackled over the intercom. Sir, that is extremely unsafe positioning. If the dog attacks from behind. Maddox ignored him, sat perfectly still, breathing slow, heart rate steady despite every instinct, screaming that turning your back on a traumatized 70-pound predator was a fantastic way to die. 5 minutes passed. 10, 15. The dog stood frozen, confused by behavior that did not match any pattern he had learned. Handlers always faced him, always demanded compliance, always pushed and prodded and tried to force him to be something he could not be anymore. But this man just sat, waiting, not threatening, not demanding, just present. Phantom's growl faded, his hackles lowered. Curiosity started to override fear. He took one step forward, then another, circled around to where he could see the man's face without the man seeing him. Maddox kept his eyes on the far wall. Let the dog investigate on his own terms. Felt the cold nose sniff his shoulder. Felt the warm breath on his neck. Felt the weight of assessment as Phantom decided whether this human was threat or something else. You have seen things, have you not? Maddox spoke quietly, gentle, the way he used to talk to Ghost when the dog woke up whimpering from nightmares about firefights and explosions. Lost people you loved. Survived when you should not have. Now you are carrying ghosts nobody else can see. Phantom's ears swiveled forward, listening. I know how that feels. Carrying them. Wondering why you are still here when better souls are not. Wondering if surviving means you failed somehow. The dog took another step closer, almost within touching distance now. I had a partner once. Ghost. Best damn soldier I ever knew. He died saving me, and I have been dying slowly ever since. Punishing myself by refusing to live because living felt like betrayal. Maddox finally turned his head, looked directly at Phantom for the first time, saw Ghost in those amber eyes, saw pain and loyalty and the terrible weight of loving someone who died. But you know what? I was wrong. Ghost did not die so I could waste the life he saved. He died so I could honor him by living well, by serving others, by being worthy of the sacrifice. Phantom sat down, right in front of Maddox, close enough to touch. You are not broken, soldier. You are wounded. There is a difference. Broken cannot be fixed. Wounded just needs time and someone who understands. Maddox extended his hand slowly. Palm down, old handler technique, letting the dog make the choice. Phantom stared at the hand, then at Maddox's face, then back at the hand. Every instinct at war with every need. The need to trust, the need to connect, the need to believe that not all humans would leave him alone in the darkness. The cold nose touched Maddox's palm, then the warm tongue, then the heavy head pressed against the hand and stayed there. In the observation room, Cross's jaw hit the floor. How did he? Garrett smiled for the first time in years. Because he is not treating Phantom like broken equipment. He is treating him like a warrior who has earned respect. Maddox stood slowly. Phantom stood with him. The dog's tail was not wagging, but it was not tucked either. Neutral, uncertain, but willing to try. Good boy, Maddox said. Just 2 words. But they carried weight, carried recognition, carried the promise that someone finally understood. They walked out of the kennel together. Man and dog. Both wounded, both still fighting, both refusing to give up even when giving up would be easier. Cross waited outside, expressions somewhere between shock and professional offense. Colonel, what you just did violated every safety protocol we have. But I cannot deny the results. How did you know that would work? I did not. I just knew what would not work. Treating him like a problem to solve instead of a soldier to respect. What is the next step? Show me the other 3. Cross led Maddox down the corridor, Garrett following behind. They stopped at the second kennel. Inside, a Belgian Malinois female paced with frantic energy, never stopping, never resting, burning herself out with movement that went nowhere. This is Shadow, Belgian Malinois, 5 years old. Handler was Captain Jennifer Brooks, killed in drone strike. Yemen 2023. Shadow has not stopped moving since. Will not eat. Lunges at anyone who approaches. Dr. Warner says if she does not eat soon. Maddox studied the dog's pattern, watched her circle the same corner over and over, protecting it from threats that no longer existed. She is not aggressive, she is protecting. Protecting what? Empty space where her handler used to stand during briefings. Look, Maddox pointed. She is guarding that corner. That is where Captain Brooks stood, is it not? Cross checked his tablet. How did you? Because dogs do not forget. They mourn. They moved to the third kennel. A male German shepherd lay motionless in the corner, eyes open but empty, breath shallow, the living death of an animal that had given up. This is Titan, German shepherd, 6 years old. Handler Sergeant Michael Foster, killed in vehicle IED Iraq 2024. Titan has shut down completely. Will not eat, will not engage, just lies there waiting to die. Maddox knelt outside the kennel, spoke quietly through the bars. This one is different. He is not mourning. He is guilty. Guilty? Thinks he failed his handler. Survivor's guilt. I know it well. Maddox's voice carried the weight of 53 years carrying the same burden. It was not your fault, soldier. You did your job. Sometimes the enemy just wins. Titan's eyes flickered. First response in weeks. The fourth kennel held a Dutch Shepherd female. She growled low when Cross approached, but fell silent when Cross stepped back. This is Echo, Dutch Shepherd female, 3 years old. Handler Lieutenant David Chen, killed in building collapse, Syria 2023. Echo is aggressive toward all males, protective of empty spaces. We think she is guarding something only she can see. Maddox studied her, saw the pattern. Closest bond was female handler. Now associates males with threat because males were enemy fighters who killed her partner. He turned to Cross. Get Major Mitchell to work with this one. Female handler, calm presence. Mitchell? Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Your trauma psychologist. I saw her name on the staff roster. Cross blinked. You want a psychologist to handle a dangerous dog? I want someone who understands trauma to help a traumatized warrior. And I want you to stop calling them dangerous. They are not dangerous. They are in pain. After seeing all 4 dogs, Maddox turned to Cross. These dogs are not broken. They are warriors in pain. And you were going to kill them because you did not understand the difference. Cross's jaw tightened. Colonel, with respect, we have protocols. Protocols? Maddox's voice was thunder. You want protocol? Here is protocol. In Vietnam, we did not abandon our brothers. We did not euthanize them when things got hard. We fought for them, bled for them, and we brought them home. The temperature in the hallway dropped to Arctic. Staff members who had been pretending not to listen froze in place. These dogs, Maddox gestured at the kennels, are soldiers. They have served their country, lost their partners in combat, and they deserve better than bureaucratic convenience. What do you suggest? Give me 2 weeks. Let me work with them my way. Old school, no assessments, no protocols, no modern psychology bullshit. Just one broken warrior talking to other broken warriors. And if you fail, then I will authorize the euthanasia myself. But I will not fail because they will not fail. You just have got to give them reason to fight again. Long stare down. Cross finally extended his hand. 2 weeks, Colonel, but you follow base safety protocols. And you document everything. Deal. They shook. Mutual respect grudging, but real. As Maddox turned to leave, Cross called after him. Colonel, one question. Why do you care so much about these dogs? Maddox stopped. Did not turn around. Because 53 years ago, I failed to save my partner. Failed to protect my team. And I have been carrying that weight every day since. Maybe if I can save these 4, it will not bring Ghost back. But it might prove his death meant something. That loyalty matters. That we do not abandon warriors just because they are wounded. He walked away. Phantom following at perfect heel. Cross stood in the hallway long after they left, thinking about protocols and procedures and the difference between following rules and doing what was right. That night, Cross sat in his office, pulled up Colonel Jack Maddox's service record. What he read made his blood run cold. 3 tours of Vietnam, K9 Handler Special Operations, Silver Star, Bronze Star twice, Purple Heart 3 times. Then an incident report from March 1971. Team ambushed, 6 killed in action. Only Maddox and 1 medic survived. Maddox accused his superior officer, Captain Richard Kaine, of negligence. Investigation inconclusive. No charges filed. Maddox refused promotion. Continued field ops until 72. Retired 85, cited disillusionment with command structure. Cross picked up his phone, called his aide. Get me Captain Kaine's file from the same period. Sir, that is now Colonel Kaine, Pentagon. He is our direct oversight. Cross's hand froze on the phone. What? Colonel Richard Kaine. He is the one who authorized these K9 euthanasias. He is also the one who blocked your request for extended rehabilitation timeline. Cross hung up slowly, stared at his computer screen. So Maddox and Kaine had history, and Kaine did not want these dogs saved. The pieces started falling into place, and none of them formed a picture Cross wanted to see. Late that night, Maddox sat in his temporary quarters on base. Spartan room. Reminded him of Vietnam barracks. He unpacked his duffel, set up Ghost's collar on the small desk, placed the photograph of his Vietnam team beside it. 8 men, 7 dogs, all smiling, all young. Only he and Doc still alive. He sat on the bunk, stared at the photo, voices echoing across 5 decades. Anderson, Ghost is the best damn dog in Nam-LT. Martinez, my ranger's going to outlive us all. Jackson, when we get home, first thing I am doing. The sentence never finished. Jackson killed the next day. Maddox lay back, closed his eyes. But sleep would not come. Never did. Not without the nightmares. The jungle. The ambush. Ghost dying in his arms. 53 years and the memory was fresh as yesterday. His phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Jack, it is Doc. Heard you are at Bragg. On my way. Someone has got to keep your ornery ass alive. See you tomorrow. Maddox smiled for the first time in weeks. Doc Rivera, the only other man who knew the whole truth. The only other man who carried the same ghosts. Tomorrow would bring more battles, more pain, more memories he had spent half a century trying to drown. But for the first time since Ghost died, Maddox felt something that resembled purpose. These 4 dogs needed him. Needed someone who understood. Needed a warrior who refused to give up on other warriors. He looked at Phantom's file on the desk. German Shepherd, 4 years old, survived Kandahar ambush 2019 when Handler was killed. Behavioral assessment, aggressive, unmanageable, recommended for euthanasia. The same words they would have used for Ghost if Ghost had survived and Maddox had not. Not this time, Maddox whispered to the empty room. Not on my watch. You 4 are going to live, going to work again, going to honor your fallen handlers by carrying them forward. He picked up Ghost's collar, held it against his chest, felt the weight of 53 years. I am going to make it right, old friend. Going to save them like I could not save you. Going to prove that loyalty means something. That sacrifice is not wasted. That warriors do not abandon warriors. Outside the window, Fort Bragg settled into night. Thousands of soldiers sleeping, preparing for tomorrow's training, tomorrow's mission, tomorrow's war. And in the K9 facility, 4 dogs lay awake in their kennels. Phantom, Shadow, Titan, Echo. Each carrying ghosts. Each waiting for someone who understood. Each one day closer to death unless someone fought for them. that someone had finally arrived. Morning came too early. Maddox woke at 0500 like he had every day for the past 50 years. Old habits never died. They just waited in the darkness, ready to pull you back into patterns forged under fire. He dressed in silence, civilian clothes still, refused to wear the uniform. That part of his life was over, even if the mission was not. Ghost collar went into his pocket, weight in reminder, promise and burden. The K9 facility was already buzzing with activity when he arrived at 0545. Staff prepping kennels, handlers running morning routines, the machinery of military dog training in motion like it had been for decades. Phantom was awake, standing at the front of his kennel, watching the door like he had been waiting. When Maddox appeared, the dog's tail moved once, twice. Not happiness, recognition, the beginning of trust. Maddox entered the kennel, sat on the floor like yesterday. Phantom approached without hesitation this time, pressed his head against Maddox's chest, breathing steady, heartbeat strong, a warrior acknowledging another warrior. Good morning, soldier. Ready to work? The dog's ears perked forward. Work. That word meant something, meant purpose, meant being useful instead of broken, meant maybe survival was not the end, but the beginning of something else. They walked out together. No lead, no commands, just two beings moving in sync like they had done this 1,000 times before. The staff watched in silence. Yesterday's miracle becoming today's routine, magic turning into method. Cross waited at the training yard, crisp uniform despite the early hour. Coffee in hand, expression hovering between skepticism and grudging respect. Colonel, I have set up the basic obstacle course, standard certification equipment. I assume you want to assess Phantom's current capabilities before. No, Cross blinked. No, I do not need to assess what he can do. I need to show him why he should want to do it. There is a difference. I do not understand. Maddox looked at Phantom. The dog sat at his side, alert but not tense, present but not demanding, waiting to see what came next. You have been treating these dogs like machines that need fixing. Run diagnostics, identify errors, apply corrections. But they are not machines, Sergeant. They are warriors who lost their purpose when they lost their partners. My job is not to fix them. My job is to give them a reason to fight again. And how do you do that? By showing them they are not alone, that their service matters, that the brothers they lost would want them to keep going. Cross opened his mouth to respond, closed it, opened it again, finally settled on the only question that mattered. What do you need? Time, space, and for you to stop treating them like problems. Before Cross could respond, a voice called out from the parking area, loud, confident, carrying the kind of joy that only came from men who had survived hell together and refused to let it break them. Jack Maddox, you old bastard. I heard you were back in the game. Maddox turned, felt something in his chest loosen for the first time in years. Marcus Rivera, Doc, the only other man who knew the whole truth. The only other survivor of that day in the jungle when Ghost died and the world stopped making sense. Doc looked good, 62 now but moved like 50. Gray hair cropped military short, face weathered but eyes bright. He wore jeans and a t-shirt that read "Medics Save Lives." Everyone else just delays death. They embraced, hard, brief. The way soldiers do when words are not enough but touch can say everything. What the hell are you doing here? Garrett called. Said you were doing something stupid involving dogs and probably getting yourself killed. Figured you would need medical support when it all went sideways. I am not going to get killed. That is what you said in '71. Then you walked into an ambush, and I spent 6 hours keeping you alive with duct tape and prayer. Maddox laughed. Actual laughter. First time in longer than he could remember. And it survived, so your medical skills cannot be that bad. Doc looked at Phantom. The dog watched him with wary interest. Not hostile, but not welcoming either. Assessing, calculating, deciding if this new human was threat or ally. So this is Phantom. Doc extended his hand slowly, palm down, the old way, letting the dog choose. Phantom sniffed, considered, then allowed the touch. He likes you. Dogs always liked me. You know why? Why? Because I never lied to them. Never pretended war was not hell. Never acted like their fear was weakness. I just accepted them where they were and helped them through it. Cross cleared his throat. Gentlemen, I hate to interrupt, but we have a schedule. Colonel Maddox, you have 2 weeks to show results. I need to document progress. establish baselines, demonstrate measurable improvement in. Sergeant. Maddox's voice carried the weight of command that decades could not erase. These dogs do not need schedules. They need what every warrior needs after combat: time, understanding, and brothers who will not abandon them. Cross's jaw tightened. With respect, Colonel, I have a responsibility to this program, to the military, to 4 dogs who are about to die because you care more about paperwork than lives. The words hit like artillery fire. Cross went red. Staff members who had been pretending not to listen stopped pretending. That is not fair. I have tried everything, every protocol, every technique, every modern method. Maddox stepped closer, not threatening, not aggressive, just present, undeniable. But you have not tried the old way, the way that says warriors heal by serving. That purpose comes from connection. That sometimes the best medicine is letting broken people help other broken people. Cross looked at Doc, back at Maddox, at Phantom sitting calmly between them like he understood every word. Fine, 2 weeks. Your way, but I document everything. And if this fails, then you put me down too. Because if I cannot save these 4, I do not deserve to keep walking around pretending I am alive. The training began that afternoon, not with obstacle courses or commands or any of the modern protocols Cross preferred. Maddox started with something simpler, something older, something that had kept warriors sane for thousands of years. He started with presence. Phantom and Maddox sat together in the shade of an oak tree at the edge of the training field. No expectations, no demands, just being. The dog lay with his head on Maddox's leg. The man stroked the thick fur with steady rhythm, breathing together, heartbeats synchronizing. 2 survivors finding peace in shared silence. Cross watched from a distance, tablet in hand, recording everything, looking for the metrics that would prove or disprove this unorthodox approach. Doc sat beside him, drinking coffee from a thermos he had brought from his truck. You look confused, Sergeant. I am confused. This is not training. This is just sitting. That is because you do not understand what these dogs need. They do not need skills. They have skills. They need permission. Permission for what? To live without guilt, to connect without fear, to believe that surviving does not mean they failed. Cross looked at Doc, really looked, saw the scars on the man's forearms, the slight hitch in his breathing that spoke of old wounds that never quite healed right, the way his eyes tracked movement with the hypervigilance of someone who had learned that relaxation could be fatal. You were there, with the Colonel Maddox, in Vietnam, 71. Worst day of my life. Lost 6 brothers, nearly lost Jack, did lose Ghost. The dog, the best damn dog I ever saw, saved us more times than I can count. Died saving Jack one last time. Doc's voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly around the coffee cup. Jack has been dying slowly ever since, punishing himself. This is his chance at redemption. At proving Ghost's death meant something. Cross watched Maddox and Phantom under the tree, started to understand. This was not about training dogs. This was about healing warriors, all of them. By day 3, the other handlers arrived to work with the remaining dogs. Major Sarah Mitchell came first, 35, psychologist, widow. She had lost her husband in Afghanistan 12 years ago and spent every day since helping other people survive the same loss. She approached Shadow's kennel with calm confidence. The Belgian Malinois was still pacing, still burning energy, still trying to outrun grief that would never get tired. Mitchell entered the kennel, did not try to stop the pacing, just sat in the corner and waited. Shadow circled, again, each lap bringing her slightly closer to the woman who sat so still. On the 15th lap, Shadow stopped, stared at Mitchell, seeing something in her posture that spoke of shared pain, shared loss, shared understanding that death leaves holes that never fully heal. Mitchell pulled out a book, Handler Brooks's journal. The dead captain's family had donated it to the K9 program, hoping it might help. Mitchell began reading aloud. March 15th, Shadow saved us today, alerted to IED 50 meters out. Whole squad alive because of her. I do not know what I would do without this dog. She is not just my partner. She is my guardian angel. Shadow's ears perked forward. That voice, not her handler's voice, but speaking her handler's words, speaking her name with love and pride and gratitude. April 3rd, Shadow is getting faster every day, smarter, more confident. She trusts me completely, and I trust her the same. We are a team, a family. Whatever comes, we face it together. Shadow took a step toward Mitchell, then another. The pacing had stopped, the frantic energy redirecting into curiosity, into hope, into the possibility that maybe her handler's love had not died. Maybe it lived on in other voices, other hearts, other humans who understood. May 20th. If anything happens to me, I hope Shadow finds someone who treats her right, who understands how special she is, who knows that dogs like her are not just tools. They are heroes, warriors, family. Shadow sat in front of Mitchell, close enough to touch. The psychologist's hand moved slowly, gently, found the soft fur behind the dog's ears. Shadow leaned into the touch. First voluntary contact in months. Good girl, Mitchell whispered. Your handler loved you, still loves you. And she would want you to keep going, to keep serving, to keep being the hero she knew you were. Shadow's tail moved. Once, twice. Not happiness yet, but the beginning of acceptance. The first step toward believing that survival was not betrayal. Doc worked with Titan, the big male German shepherd who had given up, who lay in his kennel waiting for death because living felt like admitting he had failed his handler. Doc did not try to force Titan up, did not give commands or make demands. He just lay down on the floor beside the dog. Two bodies, two survivors, two warriors carrying guilt that weighed more than any physical burden. I know how you feel, buddy. Doc's voice was quiet, conversational, like he was talking to an old friend over beers. I lost people too. Good people. People I was supposed to keep alive. That was my job. Medic, save lives. But I could not save them all. Titan's eyes flickered toward Doc, listening but not engaging, present but not committed. 71, Vietnam. We walked into an ambush, 6 men down in the first 30 seconds. I tried. God, I tried. But there was too much blood, too many wounds. Not enough time, not enough hands, not enough miracles. Doc's hand reached out, found Titan's paw, held it gently, human touch offering connection without demanding response. I used to think their deaths were my fault, that if I had been faster, smarter, better, maybe they would have lived. I carried that weight for decades, drank myself half to death trying to drown it, pushed away everyone who tried to help. Titan's breathing had changed, deeper, more present, the shutdown starting to crack. Then one day a young Marine asked me something. He said, Doc, if you had died in that ambush, would you want your buddies to spend the rest of their lives feeling guilty? Would you want them to give up? Or would you want them to honor your sacrifice by living well? Doc sat up, looked Titan in the eye. Your handler, Sergeant Foster. He did not die so you could give up. He died protecting his team, doing his job, being a hero, and the best way to honor him is to keep being the warrior he trained you to be. Titan's eyes focused, really focused. For the first time in months, something besides grief lived there. You did not fail him, the soldier. You survived. And surviving means you get to carry him forward into whatever comes next. That is not betrayal. That is duty. That Titan lifted his head. Small movement, but movement. The first sign of life returning to a dog who had been dying from the inside out. Private Tyler Brooks volunteered to work with Echo, 22 years old, fresh-faced, the kind of earnest young soldier who still believed in right and wrong and the mission mattering. Maddox pulled him aside before he entered Echo's kennel. Private, you understand this dog is aggressive toward males. She associates men with threat, with death, with her handler being killed. Yes, sir, I understand. So why volunteer? Brooks's expression shifted, something deeper showing through the youth. My sister, she served in Afghanistan, EOD Tech. IED killed her in 2015. She had a dog too, never got to reunite with him after. He was euthanized before the paperwork cleared. Maddox saw the pain there, fresh even after 10 years, the kind that never fully scabbed over. I do not want that to happen to Echo. Brooks continued, my sister would have fought for her dog, so I am going to fight for this one. Honor her memory by doing what she never got the chance to do. How do you plan to approach? Slowly, carefully. On her terms, not mine. Let her decide if I am worth trusting. Good answer. Maddox handed him Ghost's collar. Wear this. Sir, I cannot. You can. Ghost saved men. Lots of men. His spirit lives in that collar. Let Echo see it, smell it, feel the history. Maybe she will understand that not all men are enemies. Some of us are just brothers trying to keep each other alive. Brooks took the collar with reverence, held it like the sacred artifact it was. Thank you, sir. Echo watched Brooks enter her kennel, hackles raised, lips curled, low growl building, every muscle ready to fight or flee, depending on what this male human did next. Brooks sat down, far from Echo, gave her space, did not make eye contact, did not speak, just sat, waiting, patient, showing through action that he was not a threat. Minutes passed, the growling faded but the tension remained. Echo circled her kennel, keeping distance, evaluating, deciding. Brooks pulled out his phone, opened his photos, found the picture he was looking for. His sister in uniform, standing beside her explosive detection dog, both smiling, both young, both gone now. He held the phone up, not toward Echo, but just visible. Let the dog see if she chose to look. This was my sister. Her name was Emma. She was like you, brave, smart, refused to quit even when things got hard. She loved her dog more than anything. Used to tell me that mechs were better than people because they did not lie, did not pretend, just loved completely and served faithfully. Echo's ears swiveled toward the voice, still wary but listening. Emma died doing her job, clearing roads so convoys could pass safe. Her dog tried to warn her, but the IED was too well hidden, too sophisticated. She never had a chance. Brooks's voice cracked. He did not hide it, did not try to be tough. Just let the grief show because grief was honest and Echo could smell lies. I wish I could have saved her, wish I could have been there, but I was not. Just like you were not fast enough to save Lieutenant Chen. But that does not mean we failed. It means we are human, we are mortal, and sometimes evil wins despite our best efforts. Echo had stopped circling, sat 10 feet away, watching, listening, seeing something in this young male that did not match her trauma pattern. Your handler would not want you to spend the rest of your life hating men. Brooks looked directly at Echo for the first time. She would want you to trust again, to serve again, to be the warrior she trained you to be, just like Emma would want me to honor her by helping dogs like you. He extended his hand, ghost collar dangling from it, the leather worn soft, the tags catching light. This belonged to a hero, a dog who saved lives, who gave everything for his handler. His spirit lives in this collar. And that spirit says you are not alone, that other warriors understand, that your pain is real, but it does not have to be forever. Echo stood, took one step forward, then another. Nose working, smelling the history on that collar, the blood and sweat and tears of 50 years, the love and loyalty and sacrifice. She sat in front of Brooks, not touching yet, but close, closer than she had been to any male since her handler died. Good girl, Brooks whispered. Take your time. I am not going anywhere. By the end of week 1, all 4 dogs had made progress. Not dramatic, not miraculous, just steady small steps from broken toward healing, from alone toward connected, from dying toward living. Maddox gathered the team each evening, him, Doc, Mitchell, Brooks, cross-observing from the sidelines. They sat in a circle and talked. Not formal debriefs, not clinical assessments, just warriors sharing stories, comparing notes, finding strength in community. Shadow is eating consistently now. Mitchell reported on day 5, still protective of empty spaces, but the frantic pacing has stopped. She is sleeping more, engaging more, starting to remember that life can be good. Titan stood up today. Doc's voice carried quiet triumph, walked to his water bowl, drank, looked at me like he was asking permission to hope. I told him yes. Hope is not betrayal. Hope is how we honor the dead. Echo let me touch her. Brooks could barely contain his excitement, just for a second, but she did not flinch, did not pull away, just let me rest my hand on her head. It felt like a miracle. Phantom is working. Maddox's report was simple. We ran the obstacle course this afternoon. Perfect execution, like he never forgot how. He just needed a reason to remember. Cross listened to all of it, tablet in his lap, recording everything. The metrics were undeniable. Weight gain, engagement scores, stress indicators dropping. But the numbers did not capture what he was seeing. The numbers could not measure the transformation happening in front of him. On day 6, Cross approached Maddox during morning training. The colonel was working with Phantom on scent detection. hiding training aids and letting the dog use his natural gifts, rebuilding confidence through success. Colonel, I owe you an apology. Maddox did not look up from watching Phantom work. For what? For thinking protocols mattered more than understanding. For treating these dogs like problems instead of warriors. For not seeing what they needed because I was too busy following rules. Maddox finally looked at Cross, saw something different there. Humility, growth, the beginning of wisdom that came from being wrong and admitting it. You were doing your job, Sergeant. Following training, applying what you learned. That is not wrong, it just was not enough. Not for these four. How did you know what they needed? Because I am them. Maddox's voice was quiet. 53 years ago, I was Phantom. Broken. Alone. Drowning in guilt and rage and grief. I pushed everyone away. Drank myself into oblivion. Gave up on everything that mattered. The only difference is nobody put me down. Nobody euthanized the broken soldier. They just let me rot. What changed? Garrett gave me a mission. Gave me a reason to fight again. Same thing I am giving these dogs. Purpose. Connection. The understanding that surviving is not the end. It is the beginning of the next chapter. Cross watched Phantom locate the third training aid in under 2 minutes. The dog's tail was up. His movements confident. He looked like a different animal than the aggressive, traumatized mess from 2 weeks ago. Teach me, Cross said, please. Show me how to see them the way you do. First lesson. Maddox gestured at Phantom. Stop thinking of them as animals that need training. Start thinking of them as soldiers who need understanding. Second lesson. Rules exist for good reasons, but sometimes the best solution is not in the manual. Third lesson. Connection heals more than technique ever will. Cross pulled out his tablet, started taking notes. Maddox put a hand on the device, gently pushed it down. This is not something you can document, Sergeant. This is something you have to feel. Live. Become. You want to learn? Get down there with the dogs. Sit with them. Listen to them. Let them teach you what they need. Cross hesitated, then set down his tablet, walked over to Shadow's kennel. Mitchell was inside reading aloud. Cross knocked, asked permission to enter, sat down on the floor and just listened, watched, started to understand. Day 8 brought the phone call that changed everything. Maddox was in his quarters, evening, exhausted from training, about to fall asleep when his cell buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. But decades of military service had trained him that unknown numbers at odd hours usually meant something important. Colonel Maddox. The voice on the other end was cold, precise, carried authority that expected immediate compliance. This is Colonel Richard Kaine. I understand you are at Fort Bragg working with my K9 program. Maddox's blood went to ice. Every muscle tensed. 53 years collapsed into nothing. He was back in the jungle, back in the firebase, back in the inquiry room, watching this man lie about sending 8 soldiers to die. Kaine, I am calling to inquire about progress. Sergeant Cross has submitted reports indicating the 4 problematic animals are showing improvement. I find this difficult to believe given their documented behavioral issues. They are not problematic. They are traumatized. There is a difference. Semantics. Kaine's voice dripped condescension. The relevant question is whether they can return to operational status, full tactical capability, combat ready. They are warriors, not machines. They will be ready when they are ready. Unacceptable. I am authorizing a review board. They will arrive in 72 hours. If the animals cannot demonstrate operational readiness, not just tricks, but actual combat capability, they will be terminated immediately. You mean murdered? I mean euthanized according to standard protocols for unsafe animals. Unless you have objections, Colonel. I seem to recall you had objections to my decisions before. In Vietnam, how did that work out for you? The threat was clear. Challenge me again, and I will destroy you again. Maddox's hand tightened on the phone. Wanted to reach through and strangle this man. This murderer in uniform. This coward who sent good soldiers to die and called it policy. 72 hours. 3 days to prove 4 traumatized dogs could perform like elite operators. Impossible. Insane. Exactly what Kaine wanted. Set the bar so high that failure was guaranteed. Then sweep everything under the rug. Again. We will be ready. I certainly hope so. It would be unfortunate if my concerns about your methods proved justified. For the dogs, for Sergeant Cross, for your own legacy. Kaine paused. Sleep well, Colonel. The line went dead. Maddox sat in the darkness, Heart pounding, hands shaking, not from fear, from rage, from the realization that Kaine had been waiting, watching, setting another trap just like he had in 71. His phone buzzed again, text from Garrett. Kaine called you, I know. We expected this. Time to prove we are smarter than he is. Come to my office, 0600. We have work to do. Maddox did not sleep that night. Could not sleep. Just sat with ghost collar and stared at the wall and thought about 8 men who died because one officer cared more about ego than lives. Not again, he whispered to the empty room. Not these 4. Not on my watch. By 0600, Maddox, Doc Mitchell, Brooks, and Cross were gathered in Garrett's office. The general had files spread across his desk. Photos, reports, classified documents that should not exist. Kaine is coming, Garrett started without preamble. In 3 days, with a review board designed to fail these dogs. We need to be ready. For what? Mitchell asked. An evaluation or a fight? Both. Garrett pulled up a document on his computer, turned the screen so everyone could see. This is the after-action report from the Kandahar ambush, 2019. The one where Phantom's handler and 4 others were killed. They had seen parts of it before, but not this, not the full unredacted version. Intel source. Pentagon, authorization signature. Colonel R. Kaine. The mission was compromised from the start. Bad coordinates, false intelligence. The Taliban knew they were coming. Cross leaned forward. You are saying Kaine deliberately sent them into an ambush. I am saying the pattern is identical to Vietnam 71. Garrett pulled up more documents. Yemen 2023. Shadows team. Pentagon intel. Kaine's signature. Iraq 2024. Titans team. Same source. Same signature. Syria 2023. Echoes team. Again. Doc whistled low. 4 ambushes. 4 sets of dead handlers. 4 surviving dogs, all authorized by the same man. That is not coincidence. That is conspiracy. But why? Brooks looked confused. What does he gain by killing his own people? Money. Garrett brought up budget reports. K9 program funding. $50 million annually. Oversight by Colonel Kaine. But look here, contractor services. $25 million with no details. That contractor is Kaine Tactical Solutions, his private company. He is embezzling. Cross's voice was flat. Using dead soldiers to justify increased budgets, then funneling the money to himself. And the dogs are witnesses. Maddox spoke for the first time. If anyone investigates closely, if handlers testify about bad intel, if the dogs show stress responses to specific triggers, someone might piece it together. So he makes sure handlers die and dogs get labeled too traumatized to trust. We need proof, Mitchell said. Something concrete. Something that will hold up. Garrett smiled cold. That is why we are going to give Kaine exactly what he wants. A demonstration, a test, an evaluation where he expects failure. But instead of failing, we are going to succeed so spectacularly that he has to come himself, has to risk exposure. And when he does, we will be ready. What is the plan? Maddox asked. We tell Kaine the dogs are ready, better than ready, operational level. Then we leak that we are deploying them. Real mission, high profile. Make him think he needs to eliminate them before they potentially expose his past failures through their performance. You want to use them as bait, Doc said quietly. I want to use them as warriors, which is what they are. Garrett looked at Maddox. Can you get them ready in 3 days? Not just good. Combat ready, elite level. 3 days for training that normally takes 6 months? Maddox thought about Ghost, about 8 men who trusted a dog more than their commanding officer, about 53 years carrying weight that never got lighter. Yes, but we do it my way, old school, Vietnam tactics, the way that kept us alive when modern doctrine said we should be dead. Show me. The next 72 hours became legend in Fort Bragg history. The kind of training that would never appear in official manuals, but would be whispered about for decades. Maddox threw out every modern protocol. No positive reinforcement, no behavioral psychology, no gentle encouragement. He went back to something older, something primal. The bond between warriors who trust each other to survive. Day 1 was immersion. Maddox, Mitchell, Doc, and Brooks moved into the kennels with the king, slept beside them, ate with them, breathed with them. No separation, no boundaries. Complete integration. Phantom lay beside Maddox through the night. When the nightmares came and Maddox woke screaming, the dog pressed against him. Warm, solid, real, anchoring him to the present, pulling him back from the jungle. "Thank you, boy," Maddox whispered. "I got you. You got me. That is how this works." Day 2 was intensity. They ran the obstacle course 20 times, not for perfection, for endurance, for proving that exhaustion could be overcome through will, through partnership, through refusing to quit. Shadow and Mitchell moved like water, flowing over barriers, through tunnels, around corners. The psychologist was winded but would not stop, could not stop, because Shadow would not stop and they were a team. Titan and Doc tackled the course with grim determination. The old medic's knees screamed, his back protested, but he kept going because Titan kept going and neither of them knew how to quit. Echo and Brooks attacked each obstacle with aggressive confidence. The young private was half their age, but the dog pushed him harder than any drill sergeant ever had. They finished in record time, collapsed together, panting, triumphant. Phantom and Maddox ran the course last, slow, methodical, perfect. Every movement calculated, every transition smooth. They finished and Maddox knelt beside the dog, both breathing hard, both grinning. "That is how Ghost and I used to run it. 50 years ago. You did him proud, boy." Day 3 was stress. They simulated combat, live fire blanks, controlled explosions, smoke, chaos, everything designed to trigger trauma, to break concentration, to prove the dogs could work through fear. Cross organized it, brought in combat veterans to play opposition force, set up realistic scenarios, made it as close to war as training could get. Phantom held steady through gunfire that would have sent him cowering 2 weeks ago. Shadow navigated through smoke that should have triggered memories of the drone strike. Titan worked despite explosions that sounded like the IED that killed his handler. Echo maintained focus even when men in tactical gear rushed her position. They did not just pass, they excelled. By the time Kaine's review board arrived on day 4, the dogs were ready. The handlers were ready, and Maddox was ready for a reckoning 53 years in the making. The helicopter touched down at 0800, black, unmarked, the kind of aircraft that appeared in official budgets as training exercises, but carried men who made decisions that would never see congressional oversight. Colonel Richard Kaine stepped out first, 78 years old but moved like a man 20 years younger. Expensive suits hidden under military uniform, silver hair immaculate, face tight from procedures that fought time with money. The kind of officer who spent more time in boardrooms than battlefields. Pentagon connections keeping him relevant long past mandatory retirement. 5 men followed him. His review board. Bureaucrats wearing rank they had not earned through combat. Maddox watched from the K9 facility window. 53 years collapsed into nothing. He was 28 again, standing in front of an inquiry board, watching the same man lie about sending 8 soldiers to die, watching justice fail because rank protected rank in truth was inconvenient. Not this time. Maddox's hand tightened on Ghost's collar. This time we have proof. This time he goes down. Garrett met Kaine at the landing pad. 4 stars versus full bird colonel. Rank differential that should have meant automatic deference. But Garrett had stopped caring about politics decades ago. He cared about soldiers, about dogs, about doing what was right even when right was hard. "Colonel Kaine, welcome to Fort Bragg." "General Garrett." Kaine's smile was predatory. "I appreciate you accommodating this evaluation on such short notice. Given the substantial investment in these animals, I felt immediate assessment was warranted." "Of course. Shall we proceed to the training facility?" They walked across the base, Kaine's entourage trailing behind like pilot fish following a shark. Staff members who had heard about the evaluation lined the route, silent, watching, knowing something important was about to happen. Cross waited at the facility entrance, uniform perfect, bearing professional, but his eyes carried something new. Understanding, respect. The transformation from bureaucrat to warrior that came from learning what truly mattered. "Sergeant Cross," Kaine's voice dripped false warmth, "I trust you have documentation prepared. Baseline assessments, progress metrics, behavioral analysis." "Yes, sir, but I should inform you that Colonel Maddox's methods have been unorthodox. They do not fit standard evaluation criteria." "Then perhaps we should discuss Colonel Maddox's future role in military K9 programs." Kaine's threat was clear: play along or suffer consequences. "Perhaps we should watch the dogs work first." Cross's voice was steady, before making personnel decisions. They entered the observation area, One wall was glass overlooking the main training yard. The four dogs waited with their handlers, Phantom with Maddox, Shadow with Mitchell, Titan with Doc, Echo with Brooks, 8 warriors ready to prove that broken could be rebuilt. That trauma did not mean termination. That loyalty ran deeper than bureaucracy. Kaine settled into the front row, pulled out a tablet, began making notes before anything had started. The review was rigged, had been rigged from the moment he authorized it, but he would go through the motions, create the documentation that justified euthanasia, cover his tracks one more time. Gentlemen, Garrett's voice carried command authority, we will conduct 4 evaluations: obstacle course, explosive detection, tactical response, and combat stress simulation. Standard certification protocol. Each dog must achieve 90% success rate to pass. 90% is insufficient. Kaine did not look up from his tablet. These animals have documented trauma, documented aggression. They must demonstrate 100% reliability or they pose unacceptable operational risk. 100% is impossible. Cross protested. No dog achieves perfect scores across all categories. Then I suggest you prepare euthanasia protocols. Kaine smiled. Unless Colonel Maddox's methods have produced miracles. Let us find out. Maddox's voice cut through the tension. Phantom, front and center. The German Shepherd moved to the starting line. No lead, no verbal commands, just hand signals, so subtle most observers missed them. The bond between man and dog made visible through synchronized movement. The obstacle course was brutal. 12 stations, each designed to test strength, agility, intelligence, trust. Most certified canines completed it in under 4 minutes. Elite teams pushed 3. The record was 2 minutes 40 seconds set by a SEAL team dog 5 years ago. Maddox raised his hand. Phantom's muscles coiled. Ready, waiting, trusting. Go! Phantom launched forward like a missile. Hit the first tunnel at full speed. Emerged 3 seconds later. Cleared the 6-foot wall without breaking stride. Navigated the balance beam like it was highway pavement. Flowed through the tire sequence with impossible grace. The A-frame. The weave poles. The platform scramble. Each obstacle conquered with precision that spoke of more than training. This was muscle memory, battlefield experience, a warrior doing what warriors do. 2 minutes, 28 seconds. The observation room went silent. Kaine's tablet slipped. He caught it, tried to maintain composure, failed. That is 12 seconds faster than the standing record. Cross's voice carried quiet triumph, set by a dog with 3 years operational deployment. Interesting. Kaine's voice was ice. But one performance does not indicate reliability. Continue. Shadow and Mitchell ran next. The Belgian Malinois had been a pacing neurotic mess 2 weeks ago. Now she moved with confidence. Purpose. The bond with her new handler transforming grief into strength. 2 minutes 51 seconds. Well above passing. Well above most certified teams. Titan and Doc followed. The big German Shepherd, who had been catatonic, now ran with determination. The old medic could barely keep up, but refused to slow down because Titan refused to slow down, and they were partners. 3 minutes 18 seconds. Respectable, professional, proof that shutdown could be reversed through understanding. Echo and Brooks went last. The Dutch Shepherd, who had been aggressive toward males, now trusted the young private completely. They attacked the course with synchronized aggression that bordered on beautiful. 2 minutes 39 seconds. Second fastest time in facility history. 4 dogs, 4 handlers, 4 perfect runs, 0 failures. Kaine's jaw was tight enough that it cracked teeth. Proceed to explosive detection. The explosive detection course was designed to break concentration. 10 training aids hidden in a mock village. 3 easy, 4 moderate, 3 nearly impossible. Dogs had 30 minutes. Finding 8 was passing, 9 was excellent, 10 was legendary. Phantom found all 10 in 14 minutes. Shadow found 9 in 22 minutes. Titan found 8 in 28 minutes. Echo found all 10 in 16 minutes. Combined success rate, 92.5%, well above passing. Kaine's hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage barely contained. This was not supposed to happen. These dogs were supposed to fail. Were supposed to be so broken that euthanasia was the only option. Were supposed to take their secrets to unmarked graves. Tactical response scenarios. Now, the mock compound was urban warfare made training safe. Multiple rooms, Blind corners, hidden threats. Handlers and dogs would clear it together. Locate all targets, neutralize all threats. Do it fast, do it clean, do it like lives depended on success. Maddox and Phantom entered the structure, disappeared into shadows. For 3 minutes, the observers saw nothing, heard nothing. Then both emerged. 6 targets neutralized, 0 errors. Time, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. How? Kaine's composure cracked. How is this possible? Because we stopped treating him like a broken machine. Maddox's voice was steel. We treated him like a warrior who needed understanding, like a soldier who deserved respect, like a partner who had earned trust. Mitchell and Shadow cleared the compound in 4 minutes. Titan and Doc in 5 minutes, 20 seconds. Echo and Brooks in 3 minutes, 50. All above passing, all demonstrating operational capability, all proving that Kaine's assessment had been wrong, or worse, had been deliberately false. Final evaluation. Kaine stood, his entourage following like trained dogs. Combat stress simulation, live fire, controlled explosions, maximum chaos. If these animals cannot maintain discipline under realistic combat conditions, they are operationally unsafe. Agreed, Garrett gestured toward the door. Shall we proceed to the range? They moved outside. The combat stress course was Fort Bragg's crown jewel. Multiple firing lanes, detonation zones, smoke generators, everything needed to simulate war without actual casualties. Cross had prepared it personally, brought in combat veterans to play opposition, set up realistic ambush scenarios, made it as close to Afghanistan as North Carolina could get. The rules were simple. Each handler and dog would move through the course. Opposition would engage with blanks. Explosions would detonate on timers. Smoke would obscure vision. Success meant completing objectives while maintaining control. Failure meant losing the dog to panic or aggression. Maddox and Phantom went first. The moment they entered the course, gunfire erupted from 3 directions, muzzle flashes piercing the manufactured darkness, smoke generators filling the air with acrid gray clouds. The roar of blanks sounded real enough to trigger every combat reflex buried in memory and muscle. Phantom did not flinch, did not panic, did not hesitate. He moved with Maddox through the chaos like they had done it 1,000 times before. Like the partnership transcended this lifetime and reached back to every handler and dog who had ever served together. Because in a way they had. Maddox had survived this in Vietnam with Ghost. Phantom had survived this in Kandahar with his handler. Different wars, different decades. Same bond, same trust. Same refusal to abandon each other when hell itself tried to tear them apart. They cleared 3 objectives. Located 4 targets. Maintained perfect control through explosions that rattled windows 100 meters away. Time, 6 minutes 30 seconds, 0 errors. Kaine's face had gone white. This was impossible. 2 weeks could not transform traumatized animals into elite operators, could not erase PTSD, could not rebuild what he had deliberately broken. Unless Maddox had not rebuilt them. Unless they had never been as broken as his documentation claimed. Unless someone had lied about their condition to justify euthanasia. Mitchell and Shadow navigated the course with grace under fire. The psychologist was terrified but refused to show it because Shadow needed her to be strong. They completed objectives in 8 minutes. Perfect communication, perfect trust. Doc and Titan moved through like they were back in Vietnam. The old medic's knees screamed, but he ignored them. Titan stayed close, protective. The dog who had given up now fighting to protect his new partner. 7 minutes, 40 seconds. Brooks and Echo attacked the course with aggressive confidence. The young private and the female dog who had hated males, now moving as one. Trusting completely. 6 minutes, 55 seconds. 4 dogs, 4 handlers, 4 successful runs, 0 failures, 100% success rate. The observation area erupted in applause. Staff members, trainees, veterans who had gathered to watch. Everyone except Kaine and his review board. The colonel stood, tablet gripped so hard the case cracked. This is irregular. These results are statistically improbable given documented baseline assessments. I require investigation into methods used, potential use of performance-enhancing substances, possible training fraud. Training fraud? Garrett's voice was thunder. You are accusing Colonel Maddox of fraud? I am saying these results do not match the data. Either the initial assessments were flawed or current results are compromised. Then perhaps we should review the initial assessments. Maddox stepped forward, ghost collar visible on his belt. Examine who conducted them, who authorized euthanasia recommendations, who had motivation to see these dogs die. Careful, Colonel. Kaine's eyes were ice. Accusations without evidence are career-ending. Then let us discuss evidence. Garrett pulled out his tablet, turned it toward Kaine. Display visible to everyone. After action report. Kandahar ambush 2019, intel source. Pentagon, authorization signature. Yours. Kaine's expression did not change. So I authorize intelligence sharing. That is my function. Yemen drone strike 2023. Garrett swiped. Same source, same signature. Iraq IED 2024. Same pattern. Syria building collapse 2023. Again, 4 K9 teams, 4 ambushes, 4 sets of dead handlers, all involving intelligence you provided. Coincidence. Kaine's voice was steady, but his hands betrayed him. Slight tremor, pupils dilated, flight or fight response kicking in. Budget reports. Garrett continued. K9 program funding, $50 million annually. Contractor services, $25 million. No details, no oversight. Paid to Kaine Tactical Solutions, your company. The observation room had gone silent. Staff members pulling out phones, recording. This was bigger than dogs. This was corruption at the highest levels. You are alleging what exactly? Kaine's composure was cracking. That I embezzled funds? That I deliberately compromised operations? I am alleging that you sent soldiers to die to justify budget increases, then funneled taxpayer money into your private accounts. And when the surviving dogs became potential witnesses, you tried to have them euthanized. This is absurd. Kaine turned to his review board. We are leaving. This is clearly a witch hunt based on personal vendetta dating back to Vietnam. Vietnam. Maddox's voice stopped Kaine mid-step. You want to talk about Vietnam? March 71, Firebase Delta. You sent my team on patrol despite Ghost's warning, sent us straight into an ambush. 6 men died. You called it bad luck and intelligence failure. That was 50 years ago. Kaine's voice rose. You were investigated, cleared, move on. I was cleared because you had friends, had protection, had a system designed to protect rank over truth. Maddox stepped closer. But I never forgot, never stopped knowing what you did, and now you are doing it again. Prove it! Kaine's voice was desperate. You have nothing but circumstantial evidence and paranoid conspiracy theories from a PTSD-addled veteran. We have the dumb. Doc stepped forward. 4 witnesses you tried to silence. 4 survivors who can show us what happened. Dogs cannot testify. Kaine actually laughed. This is insane. No, but they can demonstrate. Mitchell joined the circle forming around Kaine. Show us their stress responses, their trauma triggers, and very specific handlers can read those responses. What are you talking about? Bring in the package. Garrett spoke into his radio. 2 MPs entered carrying a large case. Set it on a table, opened it. Inside was tactical gear. Helmet, body armor, insignia, the uniform of a Taliban fighter captured in Kandahar 2019. Cross suited up one of the opposition force members, put the Taliban gear on him, sent him into the training yard where all 4 dogs waited with their handlers. The reaction was immediate. Phantom's hackles rose. Shadow began pacing. Titan went rigid. Echo growled low and aggressive. All 4 dogs demonstrating extreme stress response to one specific stimulus. That is Taliban gear, Garrett explained. From the Kandahar ambush, the dogs recognize it. More specifically, they recognize the stress pattern it creates. Now watch. The opposition member moved in specific patterns, positions that security cameras had captured Taliban fighters using during the ambush. Phantom tracked every movement, body language screaming recognition. This was not generic enemy. This was the specific enemy who killed his handler. Now look at this. Garrett played footage on his tablet. Security camera from a Pentagon parking garage. 2019. 3 days before the Kandahar mission. Kaine meeting with 2 men. Audio enhanced, the conversation was audible. The voice was Kaine's. The coordinates are confirmed. K9 team will be in Sector 7 at 0400. Your fighter should be in position by 0330. Second voice, payment, Kaine again. Half now, half when confirmed kills. The observation room exploded. Shouting, accusations. MPs moving toward Kaine. But the colonel was already running. Bolted for the door, pushed past his review board. headed for the parking lot where his helicopter waited. "Stop him!" Garrett shouted. But Kaine was fast, motivated by 50 years of getting away with murder. He cleared the building, sprinted toward the landing pad, pilot already spinning up rotors. Maddox ran after him. 60 years old, but rage gave him speed. Doc followed. Then Mitchell, Brooks, Cross. Everyone who understood what this monster had done. Kaine reached the helicopter, pulled himself inside, turned to look at his pursuers with a smile that said, "You were too slow. Justice failed again. Evil wins." Then Phantom hit the aircraft at full speed. The dog had followed Maddox without commands, without hesitation. Just pure instinct that said this man was threat. This man was enemy. This man had caused all the pain. 80 pounds of German Shepherd fury collided with Kaine as he tried to close the helicopter door. Both went down. Kaine screaming. Phantom not biting but holding. Perfect K9 apprehension. Training overcoming rage. Discipline stronger than vengeance. The helicopter pilot killed the engine. Hands up. Surrounded by MPs who appeared from everywhere. Maddox reached Kaine, looked down at the man who had haunted his nightmares for 53 years, saw not a monster but a coward. Not evil genius but pathetic bureaucrat who sacrificed soldiers for money. Phantom. Release. The dog stepped back, sat at Maddox's side. Perfect discipline, perfect control. A warrior who knew when to fight and when to stand down. MPs pulled Kaine to his feet, read him rights, cuffed him. The colonel was babbling. Denials, accusations, threats, none of it mattered. The evidence was recorded. The witnesses were everywhere. Justice delayed 50 years was still justice. As they led Kaine away, he locked eyes with Maddox one final time. Even in defeat, the old colonel tried to find words that would hurt, that would diminish this moment, that would steal victory from the jaws of justice. This changes nothing. Ghost is still dead. Your team is still gone. Those 53 years of pain cannot be erased. Maddox smiled. The expression was sad but genuine, peaceful in ways that rage never permitted. No, but it means their deaths were not wasted. Means we finally have truth. Means you answer for what you did. And it means every dog and handler you tried to destroy will live free while you rot in a cage. That is enough. Kaine's face contorted, the mask of superiority cracking to reveal the terrified old man beneath. He opened his mouth to respond, but MPs pulled him forward, his last free steps taking him toward the federal vehicle that would transport him to the court-martial that would end his freedom forever. The last Maddox would ever see of him. 53 years of nightmares ending, not with violence, but with justice. Not with revenge, but with accountability under law. Not with a warrior's death, but with a coward's judgment. He knelt beside Phantom, wrapped his arms around the dog, felt the solid warmth, the steady heartbeat, the living proof that broken could be rebuilt, that trauma could be overcome, that loyalty transcended death. "Good boy," Maddox whispered. "You got him, we got him, it is over." 3 months later, the changes rippled through military K9 programs, like earthquake aftershocks reshaping the landscape. Colonel Richard Kaine faced court-martial on 14 counts: treason, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder. The trial was closed to public, but leaked details painted a portrait of corruption spanning 5 decades. The verdict surprised no one who knew the evidence. Guilty on all counts, life in military prison without possibility of parole. No appeals would save him. No connections could reach him. Justice delayed was still justice delivered. 6 senators resigned amid investigation into their connections to Kaine Tactical Solutions. The money trail led through offshore accounts and shell corporations. 17 defense contractors lost security clearances when audits revealed patterns of fraud. The entire Pentagon K9 oversight structure was rebuilt from the ground up with transparency and accountability finally prioritized over convenience. And 4 dogs became legends whose stories would inspire generations. Phantom was assigned permanent position at Fort Bragg, lead K9 for the revolutionary new training program. Handler Colonel Jack Maddox, who came out of retirement to run the most progressive military working dog school in United States history. Together, they trained 43 new handler teams in their first year. 0 washouts, 0 euthanasias. 100% success rate through understanding rather than force. Shadow transferred to Walter Reed Medical Center, therapy dog working with wounded veterans struggling with invisible wounds. Handler Major Sarah Mitchell, who left active duty to focus on PTSD treatment full-time. Together, they helped 372 soldiers find peace in their first 18 months. Suicide prevention through four-legged therapists who asked nothing but gave everything. Titan joined Colorado Search and Rescue. Handler Marcus Rivera, who retired from military and dedicated his remaining years to saving others the way he wished he could have saved his brothers. They pulled 17 people from avalanches in their first winter, 23 from collapsed buildings after the Denver earthquake, gave desperate families hope when hope seemed lost. Echo remained active duty, assigned to Special Operations Command for classified missions that would never appear in official records. Handler Sergeant Tyler Brooks promoted twice for valor during operations that saved countless lives. They deployed 3 times in 2 years, served with distinction that would have made his sister Emma proud, carried her memory into every mission and brought honor to her sacrifice. Sergeant David Cross became Major David Cross, took over Fort Bragg K9 operations when Maddox transitioned to training role. He learned that sometimes the best leaders were those who learned to follow first, who understood that rank meant responsibility, not superiority. General James Garrett retired with 5th Star and Presidential Medal of Freedom, spent his remaining years ensuring no soldier or K9 ever faced what Maddox and Ghost had faced. Died peacefully at 78, surrounded by dogs he had saved. And Jack Maddox finally found peace. He stood at the Vietnam Memorial 1 year after Kaine's conviction. Ghost collar rested in one hand. The photograph of his Vietnam team occupied the other. Phantom sat beside him in perfect stillness. 2 old warriors who had earned their scars. 2 survivors still fighting but for life instead of against death. The names remain carved in black granite: Anderson, Martinez, Jackson, Foster, Brooks, Riley, Thompson. 8 men who never came home, whose families received folded flags and hollow words about sacrifice. But now those families also received truth. Congressional investigation revealed that Kaine's corruption started in Vietnam, that the ambush in '71 had been deliberate, that Ghost and 8 soldiers died not from bad luck, but from calculated murder for personal gain. The families sued. 1, received compensation that money could never make fair, but acknowledgement made meaningful. Received apologies from Pentagon, from Congress, from a nation that finally admitted it had failed its warriors. A young family approached. Father, mother, son maybe 8 years old. The boy saw Phantom's service vest, eyes went wide. "Mister, is that a hero dog?" Maddox knelt to the child's level. "Yes, he is, one of the bravest dogs in the whole military." "What does he do?" "He protects people who cannot protect themselves. He never gives up on his partners. And he teaches us that loyalty and courage and love are stronger than any fear. Even when he is scared, especially when he is scared. Because being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do the right thing anyway." The boy looked at Phantom. "Can I pet him?" Maddox to Phantom. "Make friends, soldier." Phantom approached, sat, offered his paw. The boy shook it solemnly, then hugged the dog with the unself-conscious affection only children possess. Phantom's tail wagged, happy, healing, whole. The father extended his hand to Maddox. "Thank you for your service, Colonel. Thank you for remembering." The family walked away. Maddox turned back to the wall, touched the names one last time. "We did it, brothers. We got him. We got justice. And we saved 4 more warriors, kept them from being thrown away like you were thrown away. Made sure their sacrifice mattered." He looked at Phantom. The dog looked back, amber eyes meeting gray. Understanding passing between them that needed no words. "Ghost, if you are watching, mission accomplished. The pack is together, the fallen are honored, and the fight continues. We honor you by living well, by serving others, by being worthy of the sacrifice." He attached Ghost's collar to the memorial base, left it there. Physical representation of bond that transcended death, then turned and walked away. Not running from the past, but carrying it forward with purpose. Behind them, the sun set over Washington, painting the sky in colors that looked like fire and blood and hope. A new generation of warriors walked the streets, trained by methods that honored old ways and embraced new understanding, protected by dogs who were treated as partners, not equipment. Maddox and Phantom walked to their truck. Age showed in both their movements. Scars marked them inside and out. Yet they carried something more valuable than youth or perfection. They had purpose, they had peace, they understood that surviving was not the end, but the beginning of the next mission. They drove back to Fort Bragg, back to the facility where 3 more dogs waited. rescues from failed programs, traumatized warriors that everyone else had given up on. But Maddox never gave up. Neither did Phantom. Because that was what soldiers did. They fought for each other, bled for each other, refused to abandon each other no matter how dark things got. And sometimes fighting meant teaching, healing, showing broken warriors that they were not alone, that their service mattered, that the ghosts they carried could become guides instead of burdens. Maddox pulled into his parking spot, looked at Phantom. The dog looked back, ready to save some more. Phantom's tail wagged, always ready, always willing, always faithful. They walked toward the kennel together, man and dog, both warriors, both survivors, both proving every day that redemption was possible. That trauma did not mean termination. That loyalty and love and service could heal wounds that medicine never touched. The kennels held 20 dogs now, all rescues, all traumatized, all waiting for someone who understood, who spoke their language, who refused to give up. Maddox opened the first kennel. A young Belgian Malinois cowered in the corner, shaking, afraid, lost, exactly like Phantom had been 3 months ago. He sat on the floor, turned his back, waited, patient, understanding, giving the dog time to decide if trust was possible. Phantom sat beside him, added his presence to Maddox's, showing the young dog that humans could be safe. That connection was possible. That healing happened when warriors helped warriors. Behind them, the sun finished setting. Fort Bragg settled into evening routine. Thousands of soldiers sleeping, preparing for tomorrow's training, tomorrow's mission, tomorrow's battles yet to come. In one kennel, 3 warriors sat in silence. 2 waited with infinite patience. The third struggled with a choice that would determine his future. Trust or fear, connection or isolation, life or merely surviving. The young dog's breathing slowed, his trembling eased. Something in the stillness of these 2 warriors spoke louder than commands ever could. One step forward, tentative, testing. Another step, more confident, deciding. Then the warm press of his head against Maddox's weathered hand. "Welcome home, soldier," Maddox whispered. The same words Garrett had spoken to him 3 months ago. The same words that had pulled him back from the edge. "We have got you now. You are with your pack." Phantom's approval came as a soft whine. Recognition passing from one survivor to another. The pack growing stronger. The mission expanding. Ghost's legacy living on in ways the old dog could never have imagined. Outside the kennel, Doc waited with coffee and understanding. Mitchell carried files on 3 more rescues arriving next week. Brooks stood beside a young private eager to learn the old ways made new. Cross held budget approval for doubling the program within 6 months. The family was whole, the purpose was clear. And the ghosts that had haunted them for so long no longer whispered accusations. They offered guidance, direction, the sacred fire that forged broken warriors into something stronger than they had ever been undamaged. Ghost would have approved. Somewhere in the great beyond where good dogs run forever through fields without pain, the old warrior rested knowing his handler had finally found peace. In the Montana mountains, an empty cabin stood silent, photographs still on the walls bearing witness to lives cut short. But the man who had hidden there for 53 years would never return to that prison of memory. He had finally come home, not to a place but to a calling, not to the past but to a future where no warrior got abandoned, not to death but to life lived in defiance of despair. The mission continued. The battle went on. Jack Maddox and Phantom proved daily that redemption was earned one choice at a time, that healing came through serving others, that the finest way to honor fallen brothers was protecting those still fighting. One traumatized warrior at a time, one broken dog at a time, one moment of trust at a time, until every warrior found their way home, until every survivor learned that living and serving were not betrayals, but sacred duties, until the circle closed and opened again stronger than before. The young Belgian Malinois pressed closer, his fear melting into something that resembled hope. Maddox's hand stayed steady. Phantom's presence remained solid. Together they held space for healing that could not be rushed but would not be denied. Above them, stars emerged in the darkening sky, the same stars that had watched over Ghost in the jungle, that had seen 8 brave men die for a lie, that had witnessed 53 years of pain slowly transformed into purpose. Those stars bore witness now to something else, to broken things becoming whole, to warriors finding peace, to loyalty that transcended death in service that conquered grief. The mission was eternal. The warriors were mortal, but the bond between them would outlast them all. Ghost Collar might rest at the Vietnam Memorial, but his spirit lived here. In every rescue, every connection, every moment when trust defeated fear and hope overcame despair. This was how warriors won their final battles. Not with weapons, but with patience. Not through force, but through understanding. Not by forgetting the fallen, but by honoring them through the living. Maddox looked at the young dog now resting peacefully against his leg. Looked at Phantom standing guard with the vigilance that defined his existence. Looked beyond the kennel to the facility where 19 more broken warriors waited for someone to show them the way home. Tomorrow they would begin again. New dogs, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that service healed and purpose saved and loyalty conquered all. Tonight they had saved one more. That was enough. That would always be enough. End.